All right, thanks for joining me today. Effective workplace communication based on personality type. So as you guys know, we all have different personalities, right? One second. I'm going to take you through introverts versus extroverts, strengths and weaknesses, how we can communicate better. Effective communication based on personality traits and appreciation language. So I don't know if you guys have ever read the 5 love languages. This is for the love languages for appreciation. So it's pretty interesting. Behavior tendencies, strengths, and weaknesses. A lot of times we think of introverts as shy people, right? And extroverts is outgoing. Well, there are a lot of misconceptions with this. Obviously, shy people probably are introverted, but that really has nothing to do with it. It's how do you recharge? So where do you get your energy? Is it by being alone or is it being with people? And that's the difference. That's extroverted and introverted. So introverts recharge by spending time alone. They lose energy by being around people. That doesn't mean that introverts don't like being around people, right? I'm an introvert. A lot of people wouldn't think that because I love talking with people, right? I actually kind of enjoy going to networking events, but that takes a lot of energy out of me. So if I have a networking event or something, I probably won't plan anything else the rest of the week. I need time alone, I need to recharge, I need to process things. So it's nice knowing, people that you manage if they're introvert or extrovert because you can help them stay out of situations or encourage them to go into situations based on their tendencies. And then extroverts obviously gain energy by being around people. So introverts recharge by spending time alone. They enjoy one-on-one conversations. They have closer relationships with fewer people. And they listen more. Hey, Jazz.
Here I am.
They struggle with change. Not all introverts struggle with change. This is kind of just putting people in a bucket, right? We all are on a different scale of introverted and extroverted. I'm a little bit closer to the extroverted side, but I'm still introverted. So I'm going to be a little bit different than other people that may be all the way to the extreme of introverted, right? Deep focus for a long time. So we can sit alone for a long time and be totally fine. And a lot of times we're more reserved. And we reflect on the decisions we make. We're not snap decision makers. We need to process things, think about it, and then make a decision. We're a lot of times not interested in the attention. We kind of like to be behind the scenes. We like working in quiet spaces. Sometimes open offices like this one can be a little bit difficult for introverted people. So working from home is a good option for us sometimes. And then share ideas when prompted. A lot of times we're not the ones that are like, hey, I have something to say. It's more like, hey, can you tell me about that? I'm really interested. That's when we're going to speak up. So introverts in the workplace, here are the strengths. They're insightful and empathetic. They can be great leaders. This is something I think people automatically think, oh, introverts aren't going to make good leaders because they're not outgoing. They're not wanting to be around a lot of people. They're not the ones that are putting their hands up and saying something. But what's awesome about introverts is they can start small and they can lead by example, and then they can become leaders just by leading by example. So I encourage you, if you do have introverts on your team, to know that they can move up. They can be leaders. Thoughtful, strive to please, self-motivated. So another cool thing about introverts a lot of times is they don't need to be directed. If they know the expectations, they can go and do that, and you can count on them to get it done. That's not every introvert, obviously. This is just generalization. So because we're self-motivated, if you give us direction, we can usually follow through on that. And then our weaknesses. I'm going to say our weaknesses because I'm an introvert, and then for extroverts, I'll say they, if that's all right with you. So we can be sensitive, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be honest with us, right? We take what you say, it means something to us, and we're going to make the change, or try to make the change if we can. We can be anxious sometimes because big groups bring on anxiety for us, right? So the small talk and the open floor plans, like I said, can sometimes be difficult. Don't like interruptions, because we can focus really well. So when people come into our office, or there's constant like noise going on, sometimes that can be difficult for us. We can be really quiet sometimes, especially if you're really introverted, right? You can be introspective and people maybe don't think you want to talk to them, but that's not true. They're just uncomfortable. Hate being put on the spot. So if you know any of your team members are introverted, what I suggest is that you let them know if they're going to be put on the spot. Like I always like to say in a company meeting, because we used to have people introduce themselves, I would usually let the people know beforehand, like, hey, just want to let you know you're going to be asked to speak, right? That's something as an introverted person they appreciate, because we don't like being put on the spot. We like to process things and think about it before we speak. So managers of introverts, just give them advance notice. Don't have as many group events. And if you do have group events, don't feel bad if they don't want to go, right? Have some more one-on-one attention. And then mentally, just know that introverts like to mentally prepare. So anytime you can give them advance notice, and don't interrupt them. If a lot of times an email is a good way to say, like, hey, this is coming up, I'm going to want to set a meeting with you. So just think about that based on personality types, and it's an opportunity to have a discussion with your team members to find out how they like to be communicated to. So introverts are happiest when they're able to work autonomously at their own pace without consistent interruptions or unnecessary supervision. Extroverted tendencies. This one's an easier one, I feel like. Recharge by being social, enjoy group conversations, have more friends, but possibly they aren't as strong just because they know so many people. They like to speak more and easily accept change, get distracted easily, are more open. Again, these are generalizations, so that doesn't mean just because you're extroverted, these all apply to you, right? They're able to make decisions quicker. Love getting the attention. Are fine with open spaces because they do like to talk to a lot of people. They need the distractions. It fills them up. It makes them feel good. And they like to speak up in meetings. So extroverts, their strengths, ability to network and have small talk or conversation with anybody. They enjoy taking risks, collaborating in groups, thinking on their feet, presenting ideas, talking about their feelings. So as managers, it's important that you give these opportunities to these extroverts. You know, it's hard in a company setting that's large because not everybody is, like, if you have an event, the introverts aren't going to be as comfortable, but the extroverts are. If you do one-on-one, maybe the extroverts don't want one-on-one. They want more people around, right? So it's just finding that balance, and that's what's important. And then knowing how your team wants to be communicated to. Also giving extroverts an opportunity to talk about their ideas, to present to people. And then weaknesses, they get bored easily. They're not always good listeners. They're sometimes not as good at planning. They can come across intimidating because they're not afraid to talk to anybody. They're not afraid to put people on the spot, you know, or they're not afraid to be put on the spot. So sometimes it's hard to understand, like, hey, I can do it, so why can't you do it? You know, and it's just a different thought process. So managers of extroverts, make sure to give your extroverts diversity. You know, like they're not going to be the ones that are going to want to be doing those repetitive tasks, right? Working in groups, public recognition, present ideas, and networking events. And then we have ambiverts, which are right in the middle. I'm not going to get as much into this, but you could get energy from people and being alone, or be fine with that. So there's definitely a scale of being introverted and extroverted. So who here feels like they are introverted? Recharged by being alone. Nice. Yeah, that's right. You're right in the middle, aren't you? So everybody else is extrovert, or do we have any other I think ambivert. Yeah, right in the middle. Yeah. Cool. So effective communication based on personality types. This book, The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin, really kind of changed my thought process on how I communicate. And we all have frustrations with people, right? And we want them to understand us, but we also want to be able to understand them. And that's something I'm really interested in personally. So I read a lot of books on this. And what's really interesting about what I'm going to go through next is it's all about how we respond to expectations. That's it. So like, for example, I'll get into it, but I'm an upholder and Courtney's an upholder. Where our personalities are very different, but we both handle expectations the same. So this only has to do with expectations. It doesn't have to do with, you know, being extrovert, introverted, or anything else except how you handle expectations. So Gretchen kind of buckets us into 4 categories: upholder, obliger, rebel, and questioner. Understanding these 4 tendencies will help you be able to communicate better with employees, with boyfriends, girlfriends, spouses. It helps you just understand people a little bit better. So there are these 4 tendencies. Upholder. Their kind of go-to is discipline is my freedom. And I'll talk more about that. But they're able to meet outer expectations and inner expectations. So what that means is if somebody asks them to do something, they're like, all right, cool, I can do that. But they also hold themselves as they're like, hey, you know what, I want to go work out at the gym 5 days a week. They'll hold themselves to that. They're able to do that without anybody telling them to do that, or without anybody caring, really. Questioners. Questioners, this is their model. I'll comply if you convince me why. They resist outer expectations, and they meet inner expectations. So they're going to be the ones that are going to question you if you ask them to do something. Well, why do you need me to do that? What does that mean for me? Obliger. You can count on me, and I'm counting on you to count on me. They can meet outer expectations but resist inner expectations. So, hey, can you do this for me? Awesome. I will do anything you ask me to do. But I'm having a really hard time getting to the gym, or, you know, I really wanted to do that, but I'm just not able to. I really need to set that outer expectation so that somebody tells me to. So they're the ones that maybe would need like a workout partner. That doesn't mean that everybody that needs a workout partner is in this category. It's just that's usually they just need that outer accountability to be able to move forward with things. And the rebel. You can't make me, but neither can I. So they resist outer expectations and inner expectations. They just want to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, how they want to do it, right? So upholder, discipline is my freedom. These are the kind of words that apply to an upholder. Structure, deadlines, discipline, routine, rules, expectations. Tell me what you want from me, and I will do that. What's on my to-do list? That's kind of what's the first thing they think when they wake up.
So, sorry.
Yeah.
Question. Do you have like tendency if you're an introvert, extrovert with these two? Like, do those apply within these categories at all?
I mean, I think they can.
Yeah.
But no, but extrovert and introvert only applies to how you recharge. So like, it could be across the board. I think what's interesting is if you actually do look into and you're like, oh, this person's an introvert and an upholder. Okay, how am I going to talk to them differently than an extrovert upholder, right? And that kind of comes into the recognition. Like, an extrovert would want to be told something probably in a group setting, right? And an introvert maybe one-on-one. But yeah, it actually doesn't apply, but you'll see sometimes that it ties together a little bit. For example, I'm an upholder and I'm an introvert, but I'm sure there are other upholders in here that are extroverts or ambient. So it's interesting because upholders rarely suffer from resentment or burnout because they're able to say like, there's too much. This is too much for me. I need to take a step back. I need to do something for myself because like I'm going to get overwhelmed here and I don't feel okay with this. They're able to do that. So Gretchen kind of puts you into this box, but she also says you can have like a secondary, right, that overlaps with it. So the questioner, you could be an upholder, and then your secondary could be a questioner, which means some of your tendencies go towards the questioner, but mainly you're an upholder and also an obliger. So an upholder could have tendencies of both. So working with an upholder, their strengths, they're self-directed, keep appointments, they hit deadlines. Like I said, if you tell an upholder what to do, they're going to do it. And if they say they're going to do something, they'll follow through on it. But they do have weaknesses. It's like anybody has weaknesses. Sometimes they feel compelled to actually move forward with something that doesn't make sense because somebody told them to do it, right? So that's why it's sometimes nice to have somebody that can tell you like, hey, so Courtney and I work really, really well together because she's an upholder questioner. I'm more of an upholder obliger, and I'll tell you more about obliger, but she'll kind of say like, hey, does that make sense? It's like, no, actually it doesn't, you know? So it's good to surround yourself around people that kind of push you in a little bit different direction. So we get frustrated when people don't follow through on things, right? Because we can follow through, so we're kind of like, why can't other people follow through? But what I've learned is like I just need to accept that these are different tendencies, right? Not everybody's going to be the same, and I think that's really helped me understand other people. So just knowing, you know, and not getting frustrated and knowing that that's somebody's tendency or personality has really helped me. Sometimes we find it difficult to delegate. So if you manage an upholder, I would recommend to tell them like, hey, this is something you need to do, because upholders will do it, right? So just give them that push to be like, you can't do this anymore. You have to like push this. This has to be given to somebody else. And then working with an upholder, like I said, self-directed. So be clear about expectations. Just give them deadlines. Tell them what you expect. So they can be impatient, right? So just knowing that and having awareness and consequences. And then sometimes having trouble delegating, allow them to let it go. They hate it when they don't meet an expectation. It really, really affects them. So make priorities clear, because sometimes we have trouble with our priorities because everything's a priority to us, right? So being able to help us in the priority area, feel uneasy about change to routines. So over-communicate. Tell them why we're doing this, why it's going to help, and that will help in that situation. And then I don't know what I was going there. Yeah, tied to expectations.
Yeah, just what people expect from you and what you expect from yourself.
Okay, so it's kind of going basically just give them the expectation. That's okay. Upholders like that. But as you can see, like some people don't like that, right? Let me do what I want to do. Questioner, or tell me why. The questioners will say, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. Or is there a better way to do that? They like to find inefficiencies. So they're gonna question you. Whereas like they need information. They like research. They like to ask questions. They think about the better way to do things. They ask why. They really just want to understand. So questioners can also have a secondary as an upholder and a rebel, working with a questioner. So they're data-driven. Just talk to them about why we're doing stuff. Willing to play devil's advocate. Sometimes questioners are good to have. Well, questioners are great because they're not just going to allow the status quo, right? They're going to push you out of your comfort zone and find those inefficiencies, which we all want to be more efficient. Comfortable kind of bucking the system. They're not afraid to ask questions and unwilling to accept authority without justification, which questioners can probably be a little more difficult to manage if they don't agree with what's happening. They suffer from analysis paralysis, so sometimes they'll need to research and look into things so much or ask so many questions that nothing is moving forward. Impatient. Don't ever tell a questioner, this is how it's always been, because that will not fly with a questioner. So I know that can be hard because sometimes we don't have all the answers and we have to say, like, I don't know, this is how it's always been, but just know that you're going to get pushback. So they meet expectations only if they endorse or they think it's reasonable. They want to think of another way. So allow them to be involved in the process. That's what I would recommend if you're managing or working with a questioner. And then sometimes people that work with questioners can feel attacked because they're like, why are you asking so many questions? Why can you not just do this, right? Well, questioners, that's their tendencies. So you have to accept that, and you have to just provide them with all the details on why you're doing something and hope that they go along with it. If they don't, maybe you can think of a better way together. So obliger. Well, first, do we have any upholders just based on this, do you think? I thought so. I was kind of wondering. I was like,
everyone
I
came
feel
and
like
showed up.
Yeah. One you guys showed up. What about questioners? Anybody like, yeah, yeah, I like it. I think question. I like, you know, hey, sometimes there's a better way. Like, why not? Why don't we just figure it out? Obligers. So you can count on me, but I'm counting on you to count on me. What must I do today? Who can I do it for? Who can I help? Who wants me to do something? So the words. Obligers are very similar to upholders, except that they don't hold themselves if they want to do something, they're not as good about doing it unless somebody asks them to do it, right? So upholders are great because they're actually the ones that will be volunteering to help and maybe doing more than they should. So contribute, they will say yes. The upholder, so they can be a secondary upholder and rebel. Working with obligers, so these are the people you can count on most. Most likely contribute, they're very responsible, they respond to accountability really well. So they are susceptible to burnout and also obliger rebellion. So if you read the book, you'll read more about that. But it's almost like I'm okay until I'm not kind of thing, right? Like you took advantage of me and now this is not okay. And then they kind of put their hands up and they're not willing to help at all. So you kind of hope that if you have an obliger on your team, that do not push them so far that they just give up or they leave or whatever it is. But you can definitely run into this with obligers. So they don't say no. So as a manager or a coworker, don't put them in a situation where they're constantly saying yes to something. You know, maybe help them, stick up for them, tell them, no, you shouldn't be doing that. May not take time off. So as a manager, encourage them to take time off. They get exploited, right? Because they're constantly wanting to help people out. And we'll meet outer expectations but not inner expectations, like I said. Rebel. This one I find so interesting because it's so opposite from my personality, but I love it. I love rebels because they're I like people that are like really different from me so I can learn from them, or it's like confuses me, and so I'm like, okay, I gotta learn more about this. But you're not the boss of me. I feel like I can learn a lot from rebels. I do what I want. And I thought what was really interesting about them is that they don't even do what they want to do, right? So weird. Weird isn't like good weird. Like I said, I love rebels, but it's like so hard for me to understand. I like want to process, but it's like hard for me to. So they resist things. They're very spontaneous. Like I am not spontaneous at all. I'm like, I want to know what the end of the book is before I even start it, right? Tell me about that movie before I've seen it, because I don't like. I like to know what's coming up, right? I like to plan ahead. They know their desires. It's something that I really think is amazing about rebels. Like they know what they want, right? Out of the box thinking and independent minded. So rebels can have a secondary obliger and questioner. Like we said, independent, able to think outside the box. So this is what's really cool is if you put a rebel in a situation where they can flourish, like there's no end to it. Like they will just do awesome, right? But they can also be really difficult to manage, as you can probably guess. You know, if they don't agree with you, just like questioners, it's going to be a really hard time. So rebels can be very productive, but usually only if they're allowed to do the work in the way they want to. So this can be difficult also in like a work setting, right? Because we all kind of have to apply to the same rules. There are processes. So I think managers need to maybe have a harder time trying to figure out like how the rebel fits into that. Rebels love a challenge. They often struggle with mundane, repetitive tasks. So like, what if a rebel has to do reporting all the time, right? Or they have to do the same thing every week. That's not good for a rebel. So if there's any opportunity to maybe have like an upholder.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So on your first one, it says, know that some rebels need structure to ignore. So it like...
Yeah, which is confusing, right? So
like they need a deadline so they can't meet it.
Right. Pretty much, which is why it's a little bit more difficult. But I'm going to give you, because the rebel is a little...
Wait, go back to the first because it might explain it, right? Go back. Sorry, one more.
One more?
Sorry. One more, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, well, they know what they want. I was thinking it said challenges on there too, like they...
Yes, that's what, yeah, they like a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's...
So if you give them a deadline, they're either going to meet it beforehand or maybe even after to buck the system.
Right.
Not that I'm speaking from any experience.
I'm asking for a friend.
Right. It's really fun. It's like, just the fact of knowing that, like, makes you maybe, well, hopefully less frustrated, right? If you understand that personality and you know this person is going to want to not follow me, right? Because I'm telling them to do it. So I'm going to give you a way to kind of get around that. It doesn't mean they're actually going to do what you say, but you need to give them the information. You need to give them in here. They're going to know the secret. Rebels, yeah, it doesn't actually matter because they do this to themselves too. They'll say like, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but they understand that they're like that. Some of them do, and so I think they're okay, you know, if you communicate with them how they need to be communicated to. So information, consequences, and choice. Okay, so we have this weekly staff meeting. It's where we make really important decisions and where we divide up the work. If you skip the meetings, you won't have a voice in the direction of the company, and you might get stuck with less desirable assignments. So you gave the information. We have a staff meeting. The consequence is you're not going to be there to like choose the kind of work that you want to work on, right? And then your choice. They didn't actually give the choice there, but I have more examples that do. These were the ones from the book.
The choice is skipping or attending. So if you choose
Okay.
to skip, you're not going to have direction. That's your choice.
Right.
If you choose to attend, then you will have more voice in the direction of the company, meaning following the company meeting. If you choose to skip, you can't go back and say, well, I wanted to do this. You already gave up your choice because you were given the information. This is an upholder speaking.
Yeah.
And there's that come back. That's in a rebellious, like as a rebel or maybe even a questioner that say, oh, now I have questions. Well, the information was you're supposed to be at the meeting and ask questions then.
Yeah.
So I think in work situations, this happens quite a bit. And so when it comes, to something where the information is there,
right.
You have the choice to attend or not attend. This is what happens if you don't. And then when you don't, the meeting's already over. The choice is over.
Yeah.
So you have to move on. So yeah, I think
like that. That's perfect. Courtney and I both read this book.
Can you tell?
So, yeah. I think you told me about it. So,
yeah, miss it, you're out.
Okay, so now I'll go into the same situation, but different personalities. An upholder. Hey, Diane, we need you to start time tracking. This is what we expect of you. You work 40 hours a week, and you must log your time by Friday. Awesome. I'll do that. Great. Questioner. This is how you would communicate the same information to a questioner. We've implemented this new time tracking system called Right. A lot of time and effort went into us choosing this system. Here are the 5 reasons that we chose this system, and list out the 5 reasons. We're requiring everyone at the company to track their time. It's critical that you track your time because it allows us to determine utilization numbers, which helps us understand inefficiencies, bandwidth, and whether we need to hire new people or not. You're required to work 40 hours per week at 85% utilization. We require the 85% utilization because anything less than that and we're not profitable. I don't know if that's like the truth. Whoever knows that information would communicate it to a questioner. So like I said, obligers and upholders are very similar. So just give them the information. What do you need me to help with? Okay, you need me to do that, I'll do it. Rebel, like I said, information, consequences, and choice. Very similar to kind of the questioner, giving the background. We need you to do this. We're requiring everybody to do it. Here's what it looks like. 40 hours, 85% utilization. Time tracking allows us to do this. And do this. If you do not track your time, your department will not be allowed to hire more people to lessen your workload. If you're not able to move, and you're not able to move up in your position if you don't track. The choice is yours. Okay. Do you guys want to talk through anything, any experience you've had with situations? Do you think this kind of information will help you talk to people better? To understand, like, we all have different personalities. We all process information differently. Yeah. It's awesome. It's super helpful. Cool. Yeah.
I think as an upholder for me, one of my common things, or my common thing I say is, well, they should just know that. So as an upholder, I just think you should just know that's your job. You shouldn't just know that's what you should do. But for a rebel or even for any of the other tendencies, they might need more information and need to know why. And for rebels specifically to say, if you don't do this, because if you don't provide that information, my assumption is they told us to do it, just do it. Their assumption is, but why? Like, what's the consequence? Will it hurt me? Will it hurt the company? They might not be thinking that way. So it's actually helped me when I do communication at work to make sure that all the information is there, that if this, then that is also there so that the person has a choice. And then when I go back and say, if they come back to me and say, well, I really needed to add something to your presentation or whatnot, I said, well, we had the meeting for that already. I'm sorry, next time. So then you have something kind of as a backup almost too, so that they can learn for the next time they want to communicate with the team. So that's just something that I've learned how to work with my personality, because my personality is very like, get it done, like just get it done.
Right.
But that's not everyone's personalities.
Yeah, I feel like I'm more understanding to different personalities and having that compassion for people that are different than me, you know, and it's something you just have to learn over time. But
yeah. Oh, and like in a workplace environment, one more thing that I know that I've learned is, like, I'm a questioner, but I know that when I'm questioned, I immediately go on the defensive because I think, oh, they're questioning my ability or they're questioning why I'm doing this, but really knowing that I'm a questioner. Sometimes, most of the time, questions are just questions. Courtney, why did you do the report in this way? And I'm like, is that not the right way? Should I have done it in a different way? But it's really just, I wanted to do my report in that way. So I think when you're asking questions or receiving questions, just take a minute to kind of make sure that you know that everyone's coming from a good place and it's not they're questioning your tactics. It's just a question of that might lead to another conversation. So that's
that's what I found was really interesting, because questioners do not like to be questioned.
Yeah.
True. The more I read about it, it's like they don't like to be questioned because they've done the research. They've taken the time to figure it out. They didn't just all of a sudden wake up and decide, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to decide to be like that. You know, it's like because they went through the process to like figure it out. They're like, I already did that. So don't like question me on it, you know. And so if you do need to question a questioner, tell them why you're questioning. Like, what's the reasons why you need to have more information? How much time do we have? Oh, good. I'm talking fast, aren't I? Okay. Slow it down. Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Mm-hmm. Nobody's bored.
All right. Appreciation in the workplace based on your appreciation language. There's 5 of them. Words of affirmation. People want quality time. Acts of service. Tangible gifts. Physical touch. So one's not better than the other one. It's just the way you feel appreciated. So we're going to go through that. And just like with tendencies, the 4 tendencies, it can overlap with different ones. So you might have 2 top ones. And this can be different than like what you are in your personal life too, right? But it can be very similar. Mine are very similar to my personal life, but that doesn't mean you're the same. Words of affirmation. So this is, hey, awesome job today. Like, I loved what you did. Here's an example of how I want you to do it again because I thought it was so awesome. They just want you to tell them. Just tell, you know, I'm in this bucket along with the next one, but I always say, like, I just need somebody, you know, am I doing a good job? That's all I want to know, right? And then there's different ways to do it, and this is where the extroverted versus introverted comes in, because I'd rather have somebody tell me one-on-one that I'm doing a good job or send me an email saying, like, hey, awesome. Not that I wouldn't mind it being in a group, but I definitely don't need it in a group, right? It doesn't need to be at a company meeting or sent out to the entire company. Yeah, just telling somebody great job. So if you know somebody's in this love language or appreciation language, then consistently tell them, you know, what you think. Quality time. So this person just wants some of your time. They want to be listened to. They want somebody to ask them like how they're feeling, and I think it's different sometimes depending on how you feel about the person. Like, let's say you have a boss that you don't agree with or you don't respect. Like, obviously you're not going to want to spend as much time with them, but like your appreciation language should still be like, I just like spending time with people that, I don't know, just having that time, I guess. So it's really important for this language that you maintain eye contact, that you're, you know, not on your phone and like, oh yeah, okay, you know, it's like, hey, Court, you want to spend some time together? Yeah, like
yeah, sure.
Yeah. You know, so really listen to them, like allow them to talk to you, like be really engaged. That's what I would say for this one. Do you guys have any additions to that? Quality time? No? Okay. Acts of service. This person just really feels accomplished when they get their tasks done or get things done. So they'll feel appreciation when somebody pitches in to help them with something, because that's really, like, they feel accomplished then that they got their to-do list done or their tasks done. And one thing they do say is like finish your own task first before you help somebody else, because you can cause problems on like a whole different level if you're not doing your work. And don't just tell them you care, like actually show them. That's what means the most difference to somebody that feels acts of service, is how they feel appreciated. Tangible gifts. This one's an easy one. Like, hey, you did an awesome job. Here's some tickets to like a basketball game or a baseball game. You know, like, or here's a gift card. You did awesome. And I think the challenge we run into, you know, in company settings is it's really difficult to hit all appreciations, right? I mean, the easiest one is to give a gift card, right? That's the easiest one because it doesn't take time. And so it's difficult because not everybody is in this. Not everybody feels appreciated when they get a gift card. So I think it is important for managers to truly understand how each of their employees feel appreciated, because they can play to that, you know, and they might not be able to play every single one, and I guess we just need to understand that. But like even with the star player awards or core value, that's honestly just hitting one group of people, right? So if you guys have any suggestions on how to make any appreciation stuff better, I would definitely speak up, because it's hard to think of stuff that like applies to everybody. Physical touch, obviously this one's difficult in a workplace, right? Like, and it's more like, okay, like somebody gives you a hug because they showed you care. Obviously, don't hug somebody if like you're not friends with them and you don't have their face. I mean, that's like across the board. Hey, job well done. Like somebody, you know, a firm handshake. Like this is that kind of pat on the back. Like really, just awesome job. You know. So just be really careful with this one, you guys. Like. I don't know, you know, if you're going to go back and like figure out what the love language is. It's not the love language, but the appreciation, like, yeah. But I actually suggest, even in like your personal relationships, understanding what love language you have, so that you know how to tell like your boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse or whoever, friends even, how you feel appreciated. And I think it really, really helps, and especially understanding like your significant other or boyfriend, girlfriend, because they may be totally opposite of you. So you're like, I want gifts, and so I'm giving you all these gifts, and I'm like, you don't feel appreciated. I don't get it, you know. And it's like, well, maybe they just want to spend time with you. They just want quality time, or they want you to take out the trash. They want you to like do the dishes, right? That's going to show me that you love me. So. Knowing what your spouse is, I think, really helps with communication. So that's it, guys. I have a question. Woo!
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you, guys. We're going to do a little question and answer and like discussion time if you want to stay on. Otherwise, you don't have to.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we have a meeting that's going on in here in a couple minutes, but we appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Jeff.
Bye.
So I'm just curious, because I've read the 5 love languages.
Yeah.
But then is there a second book that's about the workplace?
Yeah.
And
Specifically to workplace appreciation.
so I'm just curious, like, my love language is very different from my appreciation
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
Do they speak to that at all? Like, do they have a reason why they would be the same or different?
It's the same author.
Yeah, I don't know if they specifically say. I don't think
The next
they tie
book.
the two.
The combining of the two books.
Right, because I think work situation is so different than your personal situation. And some people are really different at work than they are in real life, right? So theirs may be totally different. Mine are very similar. I think quality time and what was the first one?
Appreciation, words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Mine are similar, but so for work appreciation, I mean, I feel like most of us, like, one act of appreciation would be compensation. So in my personal life, I don't need my husband to buy me gifts to show appreciation to me, but in my work life, that's something that I value as far as a marker of where I am in the company, depending on if I've held up expectations and whatnot. But
Yeah.
so I think in those cases it differs depending. I mean, because I also like quality time with my coworkers versus like a gift card. I don't know. So I guess it kind of like.
Yeah, and I like quality time one-on-one and not in a big group, right? Because I'm introverted, so it's just interesting, you know. And I just would say, well, especially, you know, Kristen, you're constantly putting events on, right? And I think it's one of those things where it's like, don't ever feel like bad if people don't want to participate in a certain way, because that might just be their tendency, you know, that they maybe are uncomfortable or they're not needing that, or it takes too much energy because they have something else going on, right? And so, but those types of events are like awesome for team unity, and I encourage even introverts to like try to go, you know, once in a while, even though you may not feel the most comfortable. Yeah. So, and then as far as like the star player and the core value, my last day is on the 9th. So you'll probably hear that, but this is like the perfect time for you guys to revamp all that. You know, there's not one way to do anything, so I think you should definitely think about like how that can be made better, because it does really only apply to one type of appreciation group. So, yeah, just speak up, because what's really cool about here is you can make change if you truly want to. Sometimes people don't see that, but, well, sometimes you can't, you know, like realistically sometimes you can't, but in those types of situations, I don't think they know what's best. So, speak up. Any other questions or discussion? Good? Yeah.
I'm just curious because kind of like going off of Susie and Brittany, because I felt when I was reading through the words of appreciation versus like the languages of love, like mine couldn't have been polar opposites.
Yeah.
In work. Like my personal life, like I'm quality time and physical touch, but I would never want that in my work. And like in my personal life, I could really care less about gifts or words of affirmation for the most part.
Right.
But like I find in work, those would be the things that I would need to feel valued.
Right.
I'm just curious how many people are polar opposites, and then how many people would probably identify as like I'm pretty consistent.
Right, I'm the opposite too.
Okay. Because I didn't know if that was strange.
No, actually, probably more people are like that.
Okay.
And now that I think about it, quality time, yeah, it's hard, because that maybe matches up for me with certain, you know, individuals, but
quality time, though, I think for your love languages also is so much different because that's your person.
Right.
And quality time at work means, kind of like Diane was saying, like if I'm in a meeting with someone, I feel like you should respect my time. So if you're on your phone or if you're on your computer, I feel like this is not quality time, and that's going to not be appreciation shown to me, and I'm going to not like that. Or I think one of the things on your slide said, avoid interruptions. So also if I've called a meeting to ask questions or to try to get a strategy together, and that person is like constantly interrupting me and going off on a tangent, I feel like my quality time has been compromised. So I feel quality time important for me at work, but not in the same way as I consider it for my spouse, because quality time means my time is still precious here at work, and you know, when I ask to meet with you or when someone needs help, like I really value that for the other person, and I show up on time for them, and you know, I expect the same way. So when I say quality time is still up there for me at work, that's how I'm looking at it. It's not like spend time with me and things like that, like how I would be to my husband.
Right. I think
but
they
that's
probably are different.
Yeah, that's how I interpret it as.
Thanks for explaining it.
Yeah.
Because that actually, I was thinking so narrow-mindedly about.
Like sit next.
I've read the love language. I understand that so well, but like that, I kind of like.
That's just how. That's just how I see it. For like just being respectful of time is really important to me at work.
Yeah, and now that I think about it, like words of affirmation isn't as much at home. Like I don't need Harley to be like, hey, you look great. You know, like that's not how I feel loved or appreciated. But at work, it is nice to know, like, as an upholder too, you know, like, you asked me to do this, I'm doing it. Is it the way you wanted me to do it? Do you like it? Like, just want to make sure I'm doing, you know, upholders are people pleasers sometimes too. So just want to know that we're doing all right. And sometimes it just takes that like tiny little, like, you're doing awesome. That's it. An email, you're doing awesome.
Yeah, and the difference too of it being extrovert or introvert, whether
Yes.
you want everybody in the company to know that or you want a personal email. Yeah.
It's a super difficult thing, I feel like, and especially for managers that have a lot of people, you are not going to make everybody happy, and that's difficult. That's difficult for me, you know, but it's just.
But I think it's something you can try to acknowledge.
Yeah.
As far as like, so I know for me, if like I'm in the weeds of on something, someone just saying like, how are you, or how's it going, with kind of like they've already turned away. I'm like, oh, it's fine, means so much less than like, how's it going? Oh, it looks like you need help with that. Can I help with that strategy? Like, it's not all the time, but just, I guess, being aware of the people that you work with and sort of working together 40 hours a week, just, you know, kind of go the extra step to try to absorb their personality and understand, like, don't do your due diligence, like, oh, how's it going? How's it going? Oh, okay, you seem stressed, sorry. Just be like, what can I help you with that? Or like, what are you working on that? You know, I can assist. And maybe they don't want you to. Maybe they're like, no, I got it. But I think sometimes just saying that extra thing, what can I do to help you? I know it calms me. It's like, okay, I have someone like on my team to like back me up if I need it. Usually I like to do things myself, but I don't know, just kind of like knowing your teammates and knowing like they're not all like you and they shouldn't be like you. And
it's okay that they're not like you.
I think it has helped me, so I don't know. Yeah. Hopefully it helps other people.
I just found it really interesting. So if you want to, you know.
I have both books, if anybody wants to borrow them.
Oh, yeah, I actually do too.
So yeah, they're good ones.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for listening, you guys.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Like in the markers with the bookmarks where it would say, I think that looks so cool.
Yay.
Those would be cute actually, but it was like on the front, it was like up on the back, it said like,
which one?
So like kind of that scary setting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I am actually a hugger.
What are you? I'm a what?
What are you?
No, the initial one.
No.
Little,
I had the characters.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was froze.
The one, yeah, I am. I'm actually not okay to talk about it.
How old are you?
I'm in the middle.
I'm happy to I couldn't need it. I'm trying to think of it. Yeah, okay, great. In our team.
Yeah, I think thank you.
You're definitely
Thank you.
I'm a rebel. Yeah.
Yep.
Because I have the same, we have the same kind of tendency. It has like kind of the cartoon, not cartoon, but like,
Why do I not know?
but I was like, that'd be so cool, it's like bookmarks. If you like do this presentation, like pass out bookmarks and like, there's an upholder, it's like a picture on the front and on the back, it has like the information you provided.
Okay, I'm gonna.